Imagine walking through the ruins of an ancient temple, your footsteps echoing off stone walls that have stood for millennia. The air is thick with dust and history, and as you run your fingers along weathered carvings, you sense there's more here than meets the eye. Then something shifts. A hidden mechanism groans to life. A section of the wall slides away, and before you lies a passage descending into darkness, a chamber untouched for centuries. This isn't just the stuff of adventure films. It's the real, breathtaking allure of enigmatic designs buried beneath sacred sites across the globe. These hidden wonders, subterranean labyrinths, concealed crypts, and ingeniously engineered spaces, were crafted not for show, but to safeguard some of humanity's most profound mysteries. Whether spiritual, astronomical, or even technological in nature, these constructions tell a story of ancient ingenuity and an almost primal urge to protect what mattered most from the ravages of time, nature, and human curiosity. From the sun-scorched sands of Egypt to the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, cultures throughout history have gone to incredible lengths to bury their secrets deep beneath the foundations of their most sacred temples. These weren't mere storage rooms or forgotten basements. They were carefully planned, meticulously built sanctuaries for knowledge and power. Think about it. Why would ancient architects invest so much effort into creating hidden chambers, trap-laden tunnels, and symbol-encoded vaults unless they were guarding something extraordinary? These spaces held everything from sacred texts and ritual objects to advanced astronomical instruments and blueprints for technologies that still puzzle experts today. They were designed to confuse intruders or initiates and preserve truths that transcended generations. And the most fascinating part, many of these designs remain partially or entirely unexplored, their full secrets still locked away, waiting for the right moment or the right discoverer to reveal them. In this video, we're embarking on a journey to uncover 25 of the world's most captivating enigmatic designs concealed beneath temples. We'll venture into the labyrinth beneath Egypt's Hawara pyramid, explore the Mercury-lit tunnels under Mexico's Temple of the Feathered Serpent, and decode the symbolic chambers hidden below Cambodia's Angkor Wat. Along the way, we'll unravel why these mysteries were considered worth hiding, and how they continue to challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. You'll come away with a deeper appreciation for the brilliance and spiritual depth of our ancestors, and perhaps a burning curiosity about what still lies buried, waiting to be found. So join us as we step into the shadows of history, where every hidden passage tells a story, and every revealed secret invites us to see the past in a whole new light. Our journey into the world of hidden temple designs begins in ancient Egypt, beneath the sands of the Fayum oasis. Here lies the Hawara pyramid, and below it, a marvel so grand that the Greek historian Herodotus claimed it surpassed even the Great Pyramids themselves. He wrote of a labyrinth, a vast underground complex of 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and another 1,500 below, that was so bewildering no one could navigate its passages without a guide. This was not a myth. Though time and stone robbers have left it largely in ruins, the foundation and the accounts of other ancient writers like Strabo confirm its existence. It was the subterranean heart of a massive temple complex built for the pharaoh Amenemhat III, a structure designed not just to impress, but to utterly confound and protect. The genius of this design was its dual purpose. On a practical level, it was one of the most sophisticated security systems ever conceived by an ancient civilization. Imagine a network of corridors that all looked identical, punctuated by blind corners, sudden dead ends, and chambers that led nowhere. Some passages likely featured trapdoors and counterweighted blocks, primitive but effective measures to discourage and disorient any tomb raider bold enough to venture inside. The goal was to create a psychological maze, to break the will of intruders and send them back empty-handed if they found their way out at all. But the labyrinth was more than just a physical barrier. It was a profound spiritual symbol. In Egyptian belief, the journey to the afterlife was itself a treacherous path through the underworld, filled with tests and demons. By building a physical representation of this journey, the architects were creating a sacred space where the pharaoh's spirit could symbolically navigate these challenges, ensuring his safe passage to eternity among the gods. So what was so valuable that it required this level of protection? While the obvious answer is the royal tomb and its accompanying treasures of gold and jewels, many Egyptologists believe the labyrinth guarded something even more precious: knowledge. It may have served as a vast, secure library and repository for the most sacred texts of the kingdom. This could have included intricate rituals meant only for the eyes of high priests, detailed astronomical charts used to predict the flooding of the Nile, or early scientific instruments for tracking the stars. Some researchers even speculate it held records of a far older, lost knowledge, perhaps secrets of architecture or engineering that seem almost supernatural even by today's standards. The sheer scale of the complex suggests it was designed to hold more than one pharaoh's worldly goods. It was meant to be the ultimate vault for the intellectual and spiritual wealth of the entire civilization. Today, the site is a crumbling, waterlogged ruin, much of it still unexplored and mapped. The stones that once formed this incredible puzzle were quarried over centuries for other buildings, leaving behind a confusing jumble of foundation walls and fragments. This state of disrepair only deepens the mystery. It means that the deepest, most hidden chambers of the labyrinth could still be intact, sealed away beneath the mud and debris. What remains down there in the dark? Could we one day find a sealed chamber containing papyrus scrolls that rewrite our understanding of ancient science? Or perhaps we would find the answers to the rituals that were thought to guide a soul to the afterlife. The Hawara labyrinth stands as a powerful reminder that some secrets were built to last forever, challenging us to wonder how many other such enigmas are still buried, waiting just beneath our feet. Leaving the sun-bleached sands of Egypt behind, we now journey to the high plateau of central Mexico, to the awe-inspiring ancient city of Teotihuacan. Here, beneath the very foundations of the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, archaeologists made a discovery that would radically alter our understanding of Mesoamerican spiritual life. For years, the Grand Pyramid itself captivated visitors, but the real secret lay hidden deep underground, a meticulously engineered tunnel system, sealed for nearly 2,000 years. This wasn't merely a passageway, it was a meticulously constructed recreation of the underworld itself, a sacred space designed to transport the initiated into another realm entirely. The tunnel's very existence was a closely guarded secret, a hidden dimension to the temple that was never meant for the public eye, reserved solely for the highest priests to perform ceremonies that bridged the earthly and the divine. The sophistication of this subterranean complex is nothing short of astonishing. Stretching for over 300 feet from the temple's main plaza to a central chamber deep beneath the pyramid, the tunnel is a feat of precise engineering. But its true marvel lies in its contents. The walls were adorned with intricate symbolic murals, and the floor was littered with a breathtaking array of offerings, thousands of artifacts including finely carved stone figurines, jade beads, ceramic vessels, and the skeletons of animals from distant regions like jaguars and pythons. This alone would have been a spectacular find, but two discoveries in particular defy easy explanation and hint at a profound, almost otherworldly knowledge. The first was the finding of large quantities of liquid mercury pooled in specific areas. The second was the presence of numerous mirrors crafted from pyrite crystals, meticulously cut and polished to a high sheen. So what was the purpose of these strange and dangerous materials? Experts believe they were key components in creating a powerful sensory experience designed to simulate a journey through the underworld. In Mesoamerican cosmology, the underworld was often represented as a dark, river-filled cavern, a place of both danger and transformation. The shimmering, reflective surface of the Mercury, carefully contained in stone depressions, would have eerily captured the flickering light of torches or oil lamps, creating the illusion of a flowing, supernatural river. The pyrite mirrors, when strategically placed and angled, could have multiplied these light effects into a dazzling, disorienting spectacle, making the very walls of the tunnel seem to dissolve into a starry night sky or a celestial pathway. For a priest moving through this space, chanting and performing rituals, the effect would have been overwhelming, a convincing manifestation of a spiritual gateway. For an initiate, it would have been a transformative, terrifying, and awe-inspiring voyage into the heart of their belief system. This reveals that the architects of Teotihuacan were masters of more than just stone and mortar. They were brilliant psychologists and experts in illusion. The tunnel was engineered not just to conceal a space, but to conceal the methods behind the magic. By burying this technology underground, they protected the secrets of their ceremonies. The average citizen witnessing a high priest emerge from such a journey, perhaps with prophecies or divine messages, would have been left with no doubt that they had communed with the gods. The mystery, therefore, was multi-layered. On the surface was the public temple, a symbol of power and order. But beneath it was the hidden engine of that power, a controlled environment where light, reflection, and psychology were harnessed to create unquestionable spiritual authority. The enduring enigma is what else they might have known. The precise handling of volatile mercury suggests a knowledge of chemistry, while the optical principles behind the mirrors indicate an understanding of physics that seems far ahead of its time. Were these techniques discovered solely for ritual purposes, or did they represent a broader, lost technological innovation that we have yet to fully comprehend? The tunnel at Teotihuacan stands as a stunning testament to the fact that ancient concealment was often about protecting the most potent secret of all, the source of one's power. Now we travel from the ancient world to the heart of modern New York City, where a different kind of mystery is being carved into stone. The Cathedral of St. John the Divine, a monumental Gothic revival structure whose construction began in the late 19th century and continues to this day, might seem an unlikely place for enigmatic designs. Yet beneath its soaring arches and intricate stained glass lies a secret that connects it directly to the traditions we've been exploring, a hidden crypt. This isn't a dusty old basement. It's a deliberate, modern echo of those ancient subterranean sanctuaries, a space designed with the same age-old purpose, to conceal and protect knowledge that exists outside the mainstream. What makes this design so fascinating is its conscious anachronism. The architects and builders, many of whom were influenced by esoteric traditions like Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism, intentionally wove ancient symbolic language into the very fabric of a 20th century building. The crypt itself, along with lesser-known passages and chambers, is adorned with carvings that wouldn't look out of place in an Egyptian temple or a medieval alchemist's workshop. You'll find symbols like the all-seeing eye, cryptic geometric patterns, and figures representing esoteric concepts, all integrated seamlessly into the Christian iconography. This creates a layered meaning, a public face of orthodox religion, and a hidden, deeper current of mystical thought, accessible only to those who know how to look. It's a brilliant architectural sleight of hand, proving that the urge to encode secrets in stone never truly faded. The intended purpose of this space shifts the concept of protection from physical threats to ideological ones. In ancient times, a hidden chamber might guard against invading armies or tomb raiders. Here, the vault is designed to safeguard ideas from societal rejection, censorship, or simply the slow erosion of time. It serves as a repository for artifacts and documents that challenge conventional religious or historical narratives. We're talking about unpublished manuscripts on alternative spiritualities, relics from forgotten spiritualist movements, or encrypted texts from secret societies that played a role in the cathedral's own history. These aren't necessarily secrets of science or technology, but secrets of belief, records of humanity's endless and varied quest for meaning that don't always fit neatly into established doctrines. This creates a powerful bridge across centuries, linking the spiritual architects of Teotihuacan and Egypt with their modern counterparts. It demonstrates that the impulse to create enigmatic designs isn't confined to a distant, superstitious past. It is an enduring feature of the human psyche. We still feel the need to set certain truths apart, to bury them not in sand, but in symbolism, ensuring they are passed down to a future that might be more prepared to understand them. The Crypt of St. John the Divine challenges the assumption that modernity is synonymous with transparency. It suggests that even in our world of open information, the most profound truths, or simply the most controversial ones, still find their home in the shadows, waiting for the right key, the right moment, or the right seeker to bring them into the light. Now we arrive at one of the most spiritually charged and politically sensitive locations on Earth, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This is not a single temple, but a vast platform that has been a nexus of faith and conflict for millennia, sacred to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Beneath its surface lies a hidden world that is perhaps the ultimate example of a design meant to conceal not just objects, but entire histories. We're talking about a sprawling, multi-leveled labyrinth of tunnels, sealed chambers, and ancient substructures that weave a complex tapestry of devotion and secrecy. While the Western Wall tunnels are the most famous section accessible to the public, they represent just a fraction of this underground network, much of which remains off-limits, unexplored, or known only through ancient texts and tantalizing, fragmentary archaeological surveys. The engineering here is a palimpsest of desperation and faith, layered over centuries of destruction and rebuilding, after the Babylonians destroyed the first temple in the 6th century BCE, and later the Romans razed the second temple in 70 CE. The site was repeatedly built over, each new generation constructing atop the ruins of the last. This created a perfect conditions for concealment. Voids were filled, chambers were sealed, and entire passageways were forgotten. The architects of these hidden spaces weren't just building, they were engaged in an act of preservation against the inevitable tide of invasion. They engineered these subterranean areas to protect the most sacred relics of their faith from being looted or desecrated, hiding them away for a time of future redemption or revelation. The most famous of these, of course, is the Ark of the Covenant, the gilded chest said to hold the original stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. According to tradition, it was hidden away by the prophet Jeremiah just before the Babylonian conquest, and its location has been a subject of intense speculation ever since. But the mysteries go far beyond a single legendary artifact. The tunnels and chambers are adorned with ancient inscriptions and marked by puzzling structural anomalies, blocked-up doorways that lead nowhere, walls that sound hollow when tapped, and strange shifts in masonry styles that suggest older, incorporated structures. Some archaeologists theorize that these spaces could conceal entire archives from the First Temple period, papyrus scrolls or engraved tablets that detail lost Judaic rituals, legal codes, or historical accounts that would dramatically reshape our understanding of ancient Israelite society. Furthermore, given Jerusalem's central role in early Christianity, some scholars cautiously suggest there could even be evidence of the city's earliest Christian communities, perhaps even physical connections to the historical Jesus that were sealed away for protection during periods of Roman persecution. This leads us to the most challenging aspect of this enigmatic design. It may forever remain an enigma. Unlike other sites where the primary barriers to exploration are technical or financial, the Temple Mount is a powder keg of religious and political tension. The site is currently under the administration of Islamic religious authorities, and extensive archaeological excavation is strictly prohibited to avoid disturbing the sanctity of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock which stand above. This means that the most compelling secrets are locked away not by stone, but by a fragile human consensus. The true purpose of every chamber and the contents of every sealed vault are subjects of fervent debate, fueled by faith, nationalist agendas, and scholarly curiosity, often coming into direct conflict. This site, more than any other, demonstrates that the most impenetrable vaults are not made of rock, but of belief. The enduring mystery of what lies beneath the Temple Mount is a powerful testament to how humanity's deepest conflicts and most aspirational hopes can literally be buried layer upon layer, waiting for a future perhaps more peaceful than our present to finally reveal their truths. Our journey now takes us to the breathtaking, otherworldly landscape of Cappadocia in central Turkey. Here, the ground itself seems to tell a story of wind and water carving soft volcanic rock into fantastic towers and cones. But the true wonder of this region isn't just on the surface, it's deep below it. The underground city of Derinkuyu is a staggering monument not to a single temple, but to an entire society's will to survive. While not a temple in the traditional sense of a single sacred building, its very existence was a profound act of faith, a hidden sanctuary built directly beneath surface-level churches to protect entire communities from annihilation. This isn't a mere shelter, it's a multi-leveled metropolis carved into the earth, a masterpiece of defensive engineering and communal planning that allowed life to continue even when the world above had descended into darkness and danger. The scale of Derinkuyu is almost incomprehensible. This isn't a simple cave network. It's a meticulously planned subterranean city that could comfortably house up to 20,000 people along with their livestock and food supplies. Archaeologists have mapped 18 levels descending nearly 200 feet into the earth, though many believe additional, deeper levels remain sealed and unexplored. What makes this complex so extraordinary is its ingenious, self-sufficient design. Massive, circular rolling stone doors weighing up to half a ton each could be slid across passageways from the inside, blocking invaders with an impregnable barrier of solid rock. But the real genius lies in its life support systems. 52 ventilation shafts provided a constant supply of fresh air to even the deepest chambers, a feat of engineering that prevented suffocation and allowed for things like winemaking and oil pressing far below the surface. Fresh water flowed from deep, protected wells, ensuring a supply was never cut off by a siege above ground. There were stables, cellars, churches, communal kitchens, and even schools. Every facet of daily life could be maintained for months on end, completely hidden from view. This raises a pivotal question. What were they protecting that was so valuable? While the obvious answer is their lives from invading armies like the Mongols or persecutors during the Arab-Byzantine Wars, they were safeguarding something even more precious: their cultural and spiritual identity. When communities descended into Derinkuyu, they brought their most sacred possessions with them. Hidden within its deepest, most secure chambers were religious artifacts, illuminated scriptures, and precious liturgical objects used in their surface churches. These items weren't just valuable, they were the very heart of the community's faith. By protecting them, they were ensuring that their beliefs, their stories, and their connection to God would not be erased by any conqueror. The city itself became a living temple, a sacred space of preservation where the rituals of daily life and worship continued uninterrupted, safeguarding a way of life against the threat of oblivion. The enduring mysteries of Derinkuyu are as deep as the city itself. How did ancient engineers without modern technology achieve such perfect ventilation and structural stability? The precision of the shafts, which also served as communication conduits and wells, suggests a sophisticated understanding of physics and geology that seems to defy its time. Even more tantalizing is the question of its origins. While most associated with the Byzantine era, some researchers point to earlier Phrygian or even Hittite constructions, suggesting the city was expanded over millennia. This leads to the most captivating mystery of all. What lies in the unexplored lower levels? 3 levels are currently flooded and inaccessible, and many passages are deliberately blocked off. Could these sealed chambers hold clues to much older civilizations, or perhaps even early Christian relics and texts hidden during the most intense periods of persecution? The sheer ambition of Derinkuyu forces us to reconsider the resilience and ingenuity of ancient peoples, reminding us that the most profound designs are often those crafted not for glory, but for grace under pressure, ensuring that the light of community and faith could endure, no matter how deep the darkness. Returning to the sands of Egypt, we arrive at the sprawling temple complex of Karnak, a monument to imperial power and divine ambition that was built and expanded over 2,000 years. While its towering columns and grand avenues are designed to overwhelm any visitor with their sheer scale, the real heart of its mystery beats not in the open courtyards, but in the shadows beneath them. Hidden under the floors and behind false walls of the temples dedicated to the supreme god Ammon are a series of secret crypts, chambers so confined and carefully concealed that they remained untouched for centuries. These were not spaces for public worship, they were the ultimate sanctums, the high-security vaults of the priestly elite, engineered to protect the most potent sources of their power from anyone outside the innermost circle. Accessing these chambers was a ritual in itself, a physical manifestation of moving from the profane to the profoundly sacred. One would have to know exactly where to look to find the entrances, a seemingly innocuous gap between 2 massive stone blocks, a narrow staircase hidden behind a statue's plinth, or a crawl space concealed by a movable floor slab. The passages leading down are claustrophobic, often allowing only one person to shuffle through at a time, bent double in the darkness. This design was deliberately restrictive, a physical filter ensuring that only those who were meant to be there could enter. The journey downward was a descent into the underworld, a symbolic transition from the realm of the living and the public into the hidden world of divine secrets. For a priest carrying a sacred object, this journey must have been charged with an almost unbearable sense of responsibility and awe. Within these cool, dark chambers, the walls themselves speak in a language of symbols and stars. Elaborate hieroglyphics cover every surface, but these are not the standard historical records found in tomb chapels. They are intricate, often unique cryptographic inscriptions and diagrams that detail complex rituals, formulas for creating sacred unguents, and spells from the Book of the Dead intended to protect the soul. But beyond the spiritual texts, the architectural alignment of these spaces reveals another layer of genius. Specific crypts are oriented with pinpoint accuracy toward celestial bodies, particularly the star Sirius, whose heliacal rising, its first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility, signaled the critical annual flooding of the Nile for the ancient Egyptians. This precise astronomical alignment was far more than symbolic decoration. It was a functional, scientific instrument carved in stone. Scholars theorize that small apertures or specially angled shafts, now likely blocked by millennia of debris, would have allowed a narrow beam of light from a specific star to pierce the total darkness of the crypt for just a few moments on a key day of the year. This would have given the high priests an incredibly accurate, immutable calendar marker. They could predict the Nile's flood, an event that dictated the agricultural cycle and the entire economy of Egypt with absolute precision. This knowledge was power economic, political, and spiritual. By concealing the mechanism of this prediction in a hidden chamber, the priesthood safeguarded the source of their authority. The people saw them as divine intermediaries who could foretell the will of the gods, while the reality was a sophisticated understanding of astronomy hidden from view. So what powerful artifacts were deemed worthy of such incredible protection in these vaults? We are likely talking about the most sacred ritual objects, the ceremonial barges used to carry the statue of Ammon during festivals, crafted from precious metals and inlaid with lapis lazuli. The Heset vessels used for libations that were believed to hold the very essence of life, and most tantalizing of all, the sacred texts. These wouldn't be scrolls of history, but papyri containing what the Egyptians called Heka, often translated as magic, but better understood as the potent, practical knowledge of manipulating the unseen forces of the universe. This could include advanced medical procedures, chemical recipes for preserving bodies and building materials, or mathematical concepts used in the temple's impossibly precise construction. The enduring enigma of Karnak's crypts is that they challenge the modern separation of science and religion. For the ancient Egyptians, these were the same pursuit, a unified quest to understand and harness the laws of the cosmos, both seen and unseen. The hidden chambers were the secure laboratories and libraries where this holistic knowledge was developed, tested, and protected. They prompt us to reconsider the intellectual achievements of this civilization, suggesting a depth of understanding in astronomy, engineering, and medicine that we are only beginning to appreciate. Each sealed crypt represents a potential treasure trove of lost wisdom, a time capsule waiting to reveal that the line between a priest and a scientist, between a temple and a university, was perhaps far thinner than we ever imagined. Now we venture into a landscape of intense debate and captivating possibility, the rolling hills of Visoko, Bosnia. Here, a series of pyramid-shaped mountains have sparked one of the most contentious and fascinating chapters in modern archaeology. At the center of this storm is the so-called Pyramid of the Sun, a massive, geometrically regular hill that some researchers fervently believe is not a natural formation at all, but a colossal, man-made structure dating back tens of thousands of years. And if the claims about its exterior are provocative, the theories about what lies beneath are truly earth-shattering. A network of subterranean tunnels, known as the Ravne tunnels, winds through the earth below, presenting an enigma that fiercely divides experts and enthusiasts alike, forcing us to confront a fundamental question. Are we looking at a natural geological wonder, or the deliberately buried remains of a civilization so advanced it challenges our entire understanding of human history? Proponents of the artificial theory, led by researcher Semir Osmanagic, point to a series of anomalies within these tunnels that seem to defy simple natural explanation. Passages themselves are remarkably clear of debris and show a consistent, often rectangular cross-section, Within them, they've uncovered massive, hand-cut stone blocks that are seamlessly fitted together, some weighing many tons. These aren't rough, irregular rocks. They are smooth, finished megaliths that bear a striking resemblance to masonry found at other ancient sites like Peru or Egypt. Even more intriguing are the reports of strange energy phenomena. Some visitors and investigators claim to have measured unusual electromagnetic fields, concentrations of negative ions, and even unexplained ultrasound frequencies emanating from specific points within the labyrinth. This has led to a radical theory that these tunnels were not merely shelters or ritual spaces, but part of a vast, sophisticated system, a kind of ancient power plant or energy conduit designed to harness the Earth's natural forces for purposes we can scarcely comprehend. The implication, if even a fraction of this is true, is monumental. It suggests the existence of a prehistoric, global civilization with a unified understanding of energy, geometry, and construction that was lost to a great cataclysm, perhaps the very floods and disasters described in countless myths. The act of burying these structures, then, wouldn't have been a deliberate act of concealment by its builders, but the result of this civilization being wiped out and its greatest achievements slowly covered by millennia of sediment and forest growth. The secrets hidden here wouldn't be just historical curiosities. They would be the blueprints to a completely different paradigm of technology and spirituality, a lost science waiting to be rediscovered. However, the mainstream archaeological community responds to these claims with overwhelming skepticism, and their counterarguments are firmly rooted in established geological principles. They assert that the pyramid-shaped hills are perfectly natural formations, a common geological feature known as a flatiron, created by the tectonic uplift and erosion of ancient sedimentary layers. The stone blocks in the tunnels, they argue, are not megaliths at all but concrete like breccia, a natural conglomerate rock that often fractures into clean, geometric blocks due to internal pressures. The tunnels themselves are explained as natural fissures and ancient mining shafts, likely expanded by medieval or even more recent miners searching for resources. From this perspective, the entire phenomenon is a classic case of pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns and intentional design in random natural shapes, fueled by a powerful desire to find lost worlds and rewrite history. This fierce debate itself is perhaps the most intriguing enigmatic design of all. It represents a clash not just of evidence but of worldviews. It forces us to examine how we know what we know, who gets to decide what is history and what is myth, and whether our current scientific models are complete or if they blind us to possibilities that lie outside their scope. The tunnels beneath the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, whether a natural wonder or an artificial marvel, have succeeded in concealing one powerful truth: the boundaries of our past are not as fixed as we might believe. They challenge us to hold two contradictory ideas in our minds at once: healthy skepticism and open-minded curiosity, reminding us that the greatest mysteries are often those that push us to the very edge of what we are willing to accept. While the soaring columns and magnificent sculptures of the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus captured the ancient imagination, earning it a place among the 7 wonders of the world, its true power may have resided in the shadows it cast below. Beneath the gleaming marble and gold-leafed grandeur lay a hidden, functional underworld of crypts, storage chambers, and intricate drainage systems, a necessary foundation for the temple's public splendor. These subterranean spaces were far more than mere architectural supports. They were the inner sanctums where the raw, powerful mysteries of the goddess Artemis were guarded and practiced, away from the admiring but uninitiated eyes of the thousands who pilgrimaged to her shrine. If the surface temple was the stage for public devotion, these underground chambers were the backstage and green room where the true secrets of the cult were prepared and protected. This deliberate concealment served a crucial purpose in enhancing the temple's spiritual authority and mystique. Historical accounts from writers like Strabo hint that the priests of Artemis utilized these hidden areas for ceremonies related to initiation into mystery cults. Imagine a seeker having traveled from a distant land, being led not into the bright, crowded courtyard, but down a narrow stairway into a cool, dimly lit crypt. The air would be thick with the smell of damp earth and burning incense. Here, away from the public spectacle, they would participate in rituals that promised a personal, transformative connection with the goddess, rites that may have involved symbolic death and rebirth, sacred dramas, or the revelation of powerful symbols related to fertility, hunting, and the untamable forces of nature. By hiding these profound experiences underground, the priesthood created an exclusive hierarchy of knowledge. Those who underwent the initiation carried with them a lifelong secret, a bond forged in the hidden heart of the temple that set them apart and solidified the cult's influence. The practical function of these spaces was equally vital to the temple's operation as a religious and economic powerhouse. The drainage systems, often dismissed as mere utilities, were engineering marvels designed to manage the water from ritual ablutions and the seasonal floods from the nearby river, ensuring the temple's precious contents remained dry. But what were they protecting? The crypts and storage rooms likely housed the temple's immense wealth of votive offerings, precious jewelry, ornate statues, and coins donated by the devout, as well as the sacred paraphernalia used in ceremonies. More intriguingly, they may have also contained the temple's library. While the Great Library of Alexandria is more famous, major temples like Ephesus often held their own collections of sacred texts. These wouldn't have been simple hymns. They could have been encrypted scrolls containing esoteric knowledge on herbal medicine derived from the region's rich flora, detailed agricultural cycles based on generations of observation, or even records of cross-cultural exchanges with traders from as far away as India and Mesopotamia, blending Eastern spiritual concepts with local Anatolian beliefs. This leads us to the most captivating mystery sealed within those damp walls, the potential evidence of a lost, holistic science. The Temple of Artemis was not just a place of prayer, it was a center of healing. The goddess herself was worshipped as a protector of women and children, and her priestesses were likely skilled in midwifery and the use of natural remedies. The hidden chambers could have served as their laboratory and archive, storing detailed notes on the efficacy of certain plants, surgical instruments, and anatomical knowledge that was considered too powerful or sacred for common dissemination. Furthermore, the temple's renowned association with bees and beekeeping, symbols of Artemis herself, suggests a possible concealment of advanced apicultural techniques that were crucial for medicine, wax production, and even the fermentation of ritual beverages. The greatest secret buried beneath the Temple of Artemis, therefore, might not have been a single object but a complete system of knowledge, a fusion of spiritual belief and empirical observation that viewed the natural world as both divine and knowable. Its concealment protected this powerful synthesis, ensuring that the temple remained the ultimate source of wisdom, healing, and awe for all who approached it. Leaving behind the classical world of the Mediterranean, our exploration now takes us to the lush, volcanic landscape of central Java in Indonesia, home to one of the most magnificent and mysterious Buddhist monuments ever constructed, Borobudur. This colossal structure, rising like a stepped pyramid towards the heavens, is a masterpiece of stone with its open-air galleries and iconic stupas. But to truly understand its genius, we must look beyond the surface. The temple's foundation hides a secret, a series of sealed basements and hidden galleries that were deliberately covered over early in its history, creating a permanent, protected vault deep within the earth. These aren't merely structural supports, they are a time capsule, an architectural act of preservation designed to safeguard the most profound truths of Mahayana Buddhism for eternity. The act of concealing these chambers was a strategic decision of incredible foresight. Borobudur was built during a period of immense religious and political flux in the region. While the Sailendra dynasty that commissioned it was a powerful patron of Buddhism, the shifting tides of power and the eventual rise of Hindu kingdoms and later Islam posed a threat to the survival of their specific spiritual traditions. Furthermore, the region is seismically active, prone to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that could easily topple a surface structure. By building these foundational galleries and then intentionally entombing them with tons of earth and stone, the architects were creating a failsafe. If the upper levels were ever destroyed by conflict or natural disaster, the core teachings, the essential DNA of their belief system, would remain intact, buried and protected, waiting for a future age to rediscover them. Within these hidden spaces, the walls are not blank. They are a silent, stone-bound university. While the upper levels of Borobudur tell the story of the Buddha's lives and teachings through over 2,600 intricate relief panels, the covered basements contain a different kind of narrative. Here, the carvings are believed to depict more esoteric, advanced philosophical concepts and elaborate cosmological maps. These are not simple stories for pilgrims. They are complex diagrams of the universe and detailed guides to the path of enlightenment, intended for advanced practitioners. They visualize the intricate workings of karma, the stages of bodhisattvahood, and the very architecture of reality according to Mahayana thought, representing a deep understanding of spiritual geometry that parallels mandalas used in meditation. This hints at a mystery that extends beyond doctrine. The precision and symbolism encoded in these reliefs suggest a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy as well. The entire temple is aligned with celestial bodies, and certain angles and measurements are thought to correlate with astronomical events. The hidden galleries, therefore, might have served as a kind of encrypted textbook, preserving not only spiritual tenets but also a scientific understanding of the cosmos, seeing no contradiction between the two. This fusion of science and spirit raises provocative questions about the exchange of ideas. The Silk Road was not just a route for silk and spices, it was a highway for knowledge. Could the builders of Borobudur have been influenced by astronomical concepts from as far away as Mesopotamia or India? The sealed chambers might hold the answer, containing clues about the fascinating syncretism that occurred as Buddhism traveled and adapted to new cultures, absorbing and integrating indigenous beliefs of ancient Java. The greatest enigma of Borobudur's hidden depths is that they remain largely unexplored. Modern conservation efforts, rightfully focused on stabilizing the magnificent visible structure, have been hesitant to excavate these sealed basements for fear of destabilizing the entire monument. This means that the most secure vaults, the ones most deliberately protected by the original builders, are still waiting in the dark. Scholars can only speculate about what else might be entombed there. Are there physical artifacts? Caches of sacred texts on palm leaves, perhaps even translations or commentaries that are unknown to the modern world. Or perhaps ritual objects that would shed light on the specific practices of the Sailendra dynasty's Buddhist school. The existence of these spaces transforms Borobudur from a mere monument into a promise that the most vital knowledge was secured against the unpredictability of history, ensuring that the heart of this wisdom would continue to beat silently and patiently beneath the feet of countless generations until the world was ready to listen. While the grand temples of Egypt often evoke images of priests chanting and pharaohs presiding over elaborate ceremonies, The true engine of their enduring power often hummed quietly out of sight, deep beneath the sacred grounds. Nowhere is this practical genius more vividly illustrated than beneath the ruins of the Temple of Ptah in the ancient capital of Memphis. Ptah was not just any deity, he was revered as the divine craftsman, the patron god of architects, builders, and artisans, the very inventor of the arts and sciences. It is profoundly fitting, then, that excavations at his temple have uncovered not just another set of hidden crypts for spiritual relics, but something far more revolutionary, a sprawling, subterranean industrial complex. This was not a space for prayer, but for creation, a secure, concealed workshop where the most advanced technological secrets of the age were developed, perfected, and fiercely protected from prying eyes. Imagine descending into these cool, dimly lit chambers. The air would have been thick with the sounds and smells of intense industry, the sharp clink of chisels against stone, the roaring heat of furnaces melting metals, the dusty scent of sawed limestone, and the acrid tang of chemicals from adjacent labs. Archaeologists have found evidence of specialized rooms, areas for grinding and mixing pigments to create the vibrant paints that adorn temple walls, kilns for firing sacred ceramics, and workshops stocked with precision tools made of copper and bronze. But the most astounding discoveries are the blueprints. These weren't paper documents, of course, but large stone slabs and clay tablets etched with detailed diagrams, architectural plans, and what appear to be mathematical formulas. These were the master templates, the proprietary knowledge that allowed the Egyptians to erect monuments that have defied millennia. This was the ancient equivalent of a locked patent office, buried safely underground. The motivation for this level of secrecy was a powerful mix of the spiritual and the severely practical. On one hand, the knowledge held within these workshops was considered a divine gift from Ptah himself. To share it indiscriminately would be a form of sacrilege, diminishing the god's power and the temple's unique status as the epicenter of innovation. The high priests, who often oversaw these operations, were likely not just spiritual leaders but also the chief engineers and foremen, controlling access to knowledge that was both holy and highly valuable. On the other hand, there was a very earthly concern, economic and political advantage. Memphis was a thriving, competitive capital. The techniques developed here, whether for casting perfect metal statues, creating everlasting paints, or moving 100-ton stones, were state secrets. If a rival city or nation were to acquire them, it could challenge Memphis's cultural and economic dominance. This concealment was a strategic act of industrial espionage, millennia before the term was ever coined. So what specific mysteries might these sealed workshops still hold? The possibilities ignite the imagination of historians and engineers alike. One enduring puzzle is the ancient Egyptian method for cutting and shaping granite and diorite, some of the hardest stones on Earth, with such incredible precision. Modern diamond-tipped saws struggle to achieve the flawless surfaces and perfect right angles found on sarcophagi and statues. Did they possess a lost abrasive compound, a chemical paste that could soften stone, or a vibrational technology we can scarcely imagine? Then there is metallurgy. Findings of fine goldwork and intricate copper alloys suggest an advanced understanding of metal composition and tempering that seems to leapfrog other contemporary cultures. Perhaps the most intriguing possibilities lie in the realm of chemistry. The temple workshops would have been the source of the sacred unguents and incense used in daily ritual substances, often described in texts as having miraculous preservative or even hallucinogenic properties. Were the priests of Ptah conducting early experiments in alchemy, discovering compounds and reactions that were guarded as powerful religious secrets? This hidden dimension of the Temple of Ptah completely reframes our understanding of these ancient complexes. They were not just places of worship, They were the research and development hubs of their time, the Silicon Valleys of the ancient world. The genius of the Egyptian builder was not mystical or alien. It was the result of intense, focused, and collaborative experimentation, the results of which were considered far too valuable to be left in the open. This practical concealment reveals a society that revered knowledge itself as the ultimate sacred relic, the true source of its power and longevity. It challenges us to look at every perfectly fitted stone and every gleaming artifact not as a mystery, but as the product of a protected, brilliant, and very human ingenuity that chose to bury its greatest breakthroughs deep within the earth, ensuring its legacy would be built to last. Beneath the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica and the meticulously manicured gardens of Vatican City lies a hidden world that few ever see, a sprawling, multi-leveled necropolis known as the Vatican Scavi, or excavations. While many associate these depths solely with the venerated tomb of St. Peter and the burial sites of early popes, the story these underground layers tell is far older and more complex. The very ground upon which the heart of Catholicism stands is not purely Christian. It is a sacred palimpsest, a site that has been written upon, erased, and rewritten by different faiths across centuries. Before the first Christian altar was ever placed here, this was the Vatican Hill, a place outside the ancient city of Rome that was home to a pagan cemetery, and according to some tantalizing evidence, possibly a temple dedicated to Cybele, the Phrygian mother goddess, or other deities from Rome's diverse spiritual landscape. This means that the deepest foundations of Christianity's most sacred site are quite literally built upon the stones of the faiths it eventually superseded. This architectural overlap was far from accidental. When early Christians chose this site to venerate the burial place of their founding apostle, they were engaging in a powerful act of spiritual reclamation. By building their structures directly atop pagan holy places, they were not merely repurposing convenient stonework, they were symbolically asserting the triumph of their new faith over the old order. The physical weight of the new basilica pressed down upon the old temples, a concrete manifestation of theological victory. However, this act also had a paradoxical effect. It didn't erase the past, it entombed it, preserving it in a state of suspended animation deep below the earth. The builders of these early Christian structures inadvertently became the greatest conservators of the very traditions they sought to overcome, sealing away a hidden record of religious transition that would wait nearly 2,000 years to be partially glimpsed. Within these concealed chambers and blocked-off passages, archaeologists have found whispers of this syncretic past. There are fragments of pagan frescoes depicting mythological scenes hiding behind Christian walls, pagan sarcophagi incorporated into the foundations of later structures, and symbols that blend iconography from different traditions. This suggests that the earliest Christian communities in Rome, often a persecuted minority, may have used these pre-existing, hidden spaces for their own secret worship before they could build openly. The catacombs themselves, while later expanded for Christian burials, began as Roman underground cemeteries where burial customs were governed by pagan law. This creates a profound enigma. The most zealously guarded Christian site in the world physically contains and protects the archaeological remnants of the belief systems it historically defined itself against. The most compelling mysteries, however, lie in the areas that remain strictly off-limits, sealed by both physical barriers and Vatican policy. Experts widely believe that the known excavated areas represent only a fraction of the total subterranean complex. There are almost certainly entire networks of tunnels and chambers that have been deemed too fragile to excavate or too sensitive to reveal. What might these unexplored sections contain? The speculation among historians and archaeologists is enough to spark the imagination. One persistent theory suggests the existence of a sealed archive, often referred to in conspiracy circles as the Vatican's secret archives of the underground, that could hold physical evidence of Christianity's complex and messy birth. This might include early Christian texts that were excluded from the biblical canon, such as so-called lost gospels, that present alternative narratives of Jesus' life and teachings which differ significantly from the orthodox versions. These texts wouldn't necessarily be sinister, but they could reveal an early Christian movement that was far more diverse, experimental, and influenced by Greek philosophy and Eastern mystery cults than the unified church that later emerged. Beyond scrolls and manuscripts, there could be artifacts that blur the lines between science and faith. Some researchers speculate about the existence of ancient astronomical devices or orreries, perhaps inherited from earlier Roman or Etruscan traditions, that were hidden away because their heliocentric or advanced celestial models conflicted with later church doctrine. Other enigmas might be more subtle but equally revolutionary. Inscriptions or artwork that clearly show a cultural fusion, perhaps depicting Christian symbols alongside those of Mithras, Orpheus, or Isis, providing undeniable proof that early Christianity absorbed and adapted rituals and imagery from the rich spiritual milieu of the Roman Empire. The mere existence of such evidence would not diminish the Christian faith, but it would force a dramatic rewriting of its early history, highlighting a process of adaptation and synthesis rather than a purely divine revelation untouched by its cultural context. This incredible layering of history, belief, and secrecy makes the Vatican scabby the ultimate metaphor for how humanity deals with its own complex past. We don't simply destroy what came before, we build over it, we hide it, we preserve it even as we try to move beyond it. The hidden chambers beneath Vatican City are not a dark secret, but a silent stone testament to the long, slow, and often contradictory process of how religions are born, evolve, and define themselves. They protect a truth that is perhaps more valuable than any single relic, the truth that faith, like civilization itself, is never a clean break from the past, but a continuous, often hidden conversation with it. The greatest mystery they guard may be the very human story of belief itself, written layer upon layer in the dark, waiting for a future that may finally be ready to understand its profound and interconnected complexity. Moving from the sealed vaults of the Vatican, we journey to a site where the secrets are not hidden in darkness, but are instead encoded in the very air itself. In the heart of Beijing lies the Temple of Heaven, a masterpiece of Ming Dynasty architecture where the emperors of China, the sons of heaven, would perform the most critical rituals of the year to ensure harmony between the earthly realm and the cosmic order. While its iconic blue-tiled halls and raised altars are visually stunning, the temple's most profound genius is an acoustic one, a hidden technology of sound engineered into the very stones beneath the platforms. This was not a design meant to be seen, but to be heard and felt, a sophisticated auditory system that transformed public ceremony into an unforgettable, supernatural experience, all while concealing the precise mechanics behind the magic from the thousands of participants who witnessed it. The centerpiece of this sonic wonder is the circular mound altar, an open-air platform of white marble built in 3 precisely concentric tiers. To the eye, it is a symbol of the heavens, but to the ear, it is a perfectly tuned instrument. The altar's design is based on the principles of sacred geometry and numerology, with the number 9 representing the emperor and the highest heavenly power repeated in the balusters and steps. However, the true marvel is its acoustic property. If a person stands in the very center of the top platform and speaks, even at a whisper, The sound waves travel along the curved parapets and are reflected back with incredible clarity and amplification, making their voice seem to ring out from the sky itself. To a worshipper or an official standing elsewhere on the altar, the effect would have been disorienting and awe-inspiring. It would appear as if the emperor, conducting his solemn prayers for a good harvest, was not merely speaking to the heavens, but was receiving an audible, resonant reply. This auditory illusion was a masterstroke of psychological design, a hidden feature that visually demonstrated the emperor's unique and divine connection in a way that no one could question. But the sonic engineering extends beyond this single altar. The imperial vault of heaven, the smaller hall that houses the spirit tablets of the gods, is surrounded by a perfectly circular wall known as the Echo Wall. This wall is not merely a boundary, it is a whispering gallery of breathtaking precision. Its curved surface and smooth finish allow sound to travel along its face with minimal dissipation. Two people standing on opposite sides of the vast courtyard, hidden from each other's view, can speak to one another in a normal, conversational tone and be heard with perfect clarity, as if they were standing right next to each other. For the priests organizing the complex logistics of a state ceremony, this would have been an invaluable tool for covert communication, allowing them to coordinate movements and cues without any visible signal. For the uninitiated observers, however, it would have seemed like pure magic voices carrying on the wind with no apparent source, reinforcing the idea that the temple grounds were a truly liminal space where the laws of the ordinary world did not apply. This leads us to the great mystery concealed within this architecture of sound. Were the Ming Dynasty architects merely brilliant engineers creating special effects, or were they working from a much older, lost understanding of the therapeutic and spiritual properties of sound? Some researchers speculate that the specific frequencies and resonances produced at these sites were not just for show. They may have been calculated to induce specific states of consciousness in the participants, a form of sonic meditation that could align the mind with the ritual's intent, or even promote healing by harnessing the vibrational energy of the earth itself. The precise cosmological alignment of the entire temple complex, oriented to the winter solstice sunrise, suggests that the sound technology was part of a holistic system that integrated astronomy, geometry, and physics. The secrets buried here are not physical artifacts, but intellectual ones, the mathematical formulas and harmonic principles that would allow one to build such a space. By encoding this knowledge into the immutable form of stone, the builders protected it from being lost or co-opted, ensuring that the methods for creating such profound experiences remained the exclusive domain of the imperial court and its most trusted scholars. The Temple of Heaven, therefore, stands as a sublime example of an enigmatic design that hides its greatest secrets in plain hearing. It challenges our modern distinction between science and spirituality, showing us a world where the two were inseparable. The priests and emperors were not fraudsters, but masters of a sophisticated technology that used the environment to manifest the divine. They understood that true power often lies not in what is seen, but in what is heard and felt, and they buried their methods not in the ground, but in the elegant, undeniable mathematics of marble and mortar. It invites us to consider how many other ancient sites might hold similar acoustic secrets, waiting for us to stop looking and simply listen. Now we venture into a realm where archaeology ends and legend begins, into the very heart of mystical speculation, the hidden world beneath the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Unlike the stone and mortar we've explored so far, this enigmatic design exists primarily in the pages of ancient texts, in the intricate diagrams of Kabbalistic scholars, and in the unwavering belief of countless seekers across centuries. The historical temple, destroyed first by the Babylonians and then finally by the Romans, has left little physical evidence. Yet, its subterranean blueprint lives on in esoteric traditions with a vividness that often feels more real than any ruin, suggesting a space designed not just to store gold, but to guard the very keys to understanding the universe. These traditions, particularly within Jewish mysticism like the Kabbalah and in later Western esoteric schools, describe a vast and complex underworld beneath the Temple Mount. This wasn't merely a basement for storage, it was an active, functioning metaphysical engine. The descriptions speak of multiple hidden chambers, each with a specific, profound purpose. One room might have housed the legendary Molten Sea, a giant bronze basin not just for ritual washing, but symbolically representing the primordial waters of creation. Another, known as the Foundation Stone, was believed to be the very navel of the world, the point from which creation unfolded. But the most captivating descriptions are of devices and installations designed for interaction with the divine. Ancient texts allude to mechanisms for scrying or divination, perhaps involving polished black stone or bowls of water positioned to catch specific celestial light, allowing the high priest to perceive messages from God. Other accounts suggest resonant chambers constructed with precise harmonic proportions, where chanting or the sounding of a sacred instrument like the shofar could create frequencies believed to thin the veil between the physical and spiritual realms, facilitating communication with angels or divine entities. The intention behind concealing such profound knowledge was the ultimate form of access control. This wasn't about hiding things from invaders. It was about protecting humanity from truths it was not yet prepared to handle and ensuring that such power was only wielded by those who had undergone rigorous spiritual and ethical training. The knowledge itself was considered alive and active, dangerous in the wrong hands. Sacred geometry was the language of this concealment. The precise measurements of the temple, the ratios between its chambers, and the symbols adorning its hidden walls were not arbitrary. They were a coded mathematical and geometric language, a blueprint for reality itself. To an initiate, understanding that a certain angle represented a specific divine emanation, or that a numerical value correlated with a celestial force, was to understand how to navigate and potentially influence the very fabric of existence. The temple's design was a physical manifestation of a cosmic map, and its hidden rooms were the control panels. This leads us to the most enduring and controversial mysteries associated with this speculative complex, the potential for advanced metaphysical technology. Some interpretations of the text suggest the Ark of the Covenant was far more than a gilded box. It is described as a device that could generate immense power, a capacitor of sorts for divine energy that could strike down the unworthy and illuminate the path for the righteous. Could this be a misunderstood description of a form of energy manipulation, perhaps even something akin to electricity or a force we have yet to name? Other theories propose that the arrangement of the underground chambers, their specific alignments with stars, and their use of specific materials created a kind of spiritual amplifier, a technology of consciousness. The goal wouldn't have been to power a city, but to elevate the human mind, to create a space where collective prayer or meditation could achieve a critical mass, facilitating a tangible connection to a higher reality and unlocking latent human potential for enlightenment or healing. The compelling power of this enigma lies in its resistance to proof. It exists in the fertile ground between history and hope, between archaeology and aspiration. It challenges the modern, materialist worldview that insists if something cannot be dug up and measured, it cannot be real. The Temple of Solomon's hidden dimensions remind us that the most potent human realities are often those built from faith, symbol, and the relentless pursuit of meaning. They represent a different kind of truth, one that has inspired art, architecture, and spiritual quests for millennia. This speculative design urges us to consider that the greatest secrets of antiquity might not be found in a physical artifact, but in a lost understanding of how to build a bridge between the earth and the heavens, an understanding so powerful that it had to be buried not in sand, but in symbol, waiting for a time when we are ready to understand not just with tools but with our souls. Now we journey to the steamy jungles of Cambodia, where the magnificent spires of Angkor Wat pierce the sky, a testament to the power and ambition of the Khmer Empire. For centuries, this vast temple complex has been admired for its breathtaking scale and intricate carvings, a monument to the Hindu god Vishnu that later became a Buddhist sanctuary. But its true genius, it turns out, was hidden in plain sight, buried not in deep chambers but just beneath the forest floor. Recent breakthroughs in technology have finally pulled back this veil of greenery, revealing a secret cityscape lurking below. Using airborne laser scanning technology known as LiDAR, archaeologists have made a stunning discovery: an extensive, previously unknown network of underground structures and incredibly sophisticated water management systems that completely rewrite our understanding of this iconic site. This wasn't just a temple, it was a meticulously engineered hydraulic empire, and its most profound secrets were designed to be concealed by both earth and water, creating a living model of the Hindu cosmos itself. The LiDAR revelations were nothing short of revolutionary. By effectively digitally stripping away the dense jungle canopy, the scans revealed the ghostly outlines of buried towers, hidden foundations of smaller temples, and a sprawling grid of canals, reservoirs, and embankments that extended far beyond the central complex. This hidden infrastructure reveals a stunning level of urban planning and environmental mastery. The most captivating features are the so-called submerged galleries, long, low structures that appear to have been intentionally built below the water table or designed to be periodically flooded. Unlike the soaring towers meant to reach for the heavens, these sunken spaces were meant to descend into the symbolic underworld, creating a complete cosmic diagram in architecture. The water itself was not just a practical necessity, it was a sacred element. In Hindu cosmology, the universe is born from and sustained by the primordial waters. By engineering these extensive moats and reservoirs known as barrays, and then building hidden chambers within them, the Khmer architects were physically replicating the act of creation. The temple wasn't just a building, it was a microcosm, a machine for maintaining spiritual and earthly balance, with its hidden hydraulic heart powering the entire system. This profound integration of practicality and spirituality points directly to the temple's primary purpose: to serve and protect the cult of the Devaraja, or God-King. The king was not just a ruler, he was a living embodiment of a god on earth, and the stability of his rule was directly tied to the order of the cosmos and the prosperity of the land. The intricate water management system was the ultimate tool of this power. By controlling the monsoon floods and storing water to irrigate rice paddies during the dry season, the king could guarantee food for his people, demonstrating his divine mandate through practical benevolence. But the hidden, submerged galleries likely served a more secretive role. These secure, waterlogged spaces would have been the perfect place to conceal the most sacred artifacts of the Devaraja cult. Perhaps the golden urns believed to hold the king's spiritual essence, specific ritual objects used only during the most important ceremonies, or even the preserved remains of previous god-kings. Burying these items underwater would have added a layer of symbolic protection, connecting them to the eternal, life-giving power of the primordial ocean, while also making them virtually inaccessible to anyone not initiated into the secrets of the temple's design. Beyond spiritual relics, these concealed areas may have also safeguarded the empire's most valuable scientific knowledge. The bas-reliefs at Angkor Wat are famously detailed, but some feature unusual, seemingly out-of-place patterns and diagrams that scholars believe could be encoded instructions or astronomical charts. The Khmers possessed an incredibly accurate calendar system, essential for agriculture and for timing religious festivals. It is highly plausible that the priests used sophisticated astronomical instruments, precise sundials, star charts, or even early forms of astrolabes to make their calculations. These delicate instruments, central to the king's claim of controlling time and seasons, would have been priceless state secrets. Storing them in a stable, humidified underground gallery would have protected them from the tropical heat and monsoon rains, and more importantly, hidden them from view. The mystery deepens when we consider the origins of this knowledge. The architectural and engineering styles at Angkor show clear influences from Indian civilizations, but also distinct local innovations. The hidden blueprints for these water systems and astronomical tools could provide the missing link, showing exactly how this knowledge was transmitted along trade routes and adapted to the unique challenges of the Cambodian landscape, revealing a story of cultural exchange and intellectual evolution that has been lost to history. The greatest enigma of Angkor Wat's hidden design is therefore a holistic one. It challenges our modern tendency to separate science from religion, utility from art. The Khmer saw no such division. A water channel was both an irrigation ditch and a representation of the Milky Way. A submerged chamber was both a secure vault and a symbolic womb of creation. The temple's collapse as a political center is often linked to the failure of this incredibly complex hydraulic system, possibly due to extended drought or catastrophic flooding that even their engineering couldn't contain. This suggests that their entire civilization was built upon a delicate balance between understanding the earth and appealing to the heavens, a balance that was literally buried within the land. The hidden structures of Angkor Wat are a powerful reminder that ancient enigmatic designs were often about harmonizing with the environment, not conquering it, and that the most profound secrets they protect might be the blueprints for a sustainable way of life that we are only now beginning to rediscover. Deep within the temple complex dedicated to the goddess Hathor at Dendera, away from the grand columned halls where public worship took place, lies a series of cramped, low-ceilinged crypts that feel more like a technical blueprint than a sacred space. The walls here are not adorned with typical scenes of gods and pharaohs. Instead, they are covered in bizarre and captivating reliefs that have sparked one of the most passionate debates in all of Egyptology. The most famous of these carvings depicts a large, writhing snake contained within an elongated, lotus flower-shaped vessel, which is connected by a cable-like rope to a box, seemingly held aloft by a jed pillar, a symbol of stability. To a modern eye, the resemblance is uncanny. It looks unmistakably like a giant, ancient light bulb. This so-called Dendera light has become the centerpiece of a theory that the ancient Egyptians possessed and then deliberately concealed, a form of advanced electrical technology that was lost to history for millennia. The proponents of this theory argue that these crypts were not just storage rooms but secure laboratories or generator chambers. They suggest the snake represents the filament of a bulb, the vessel is the glass envelope, the jed pillar is an insulator, and the cable is a wire connecting to an energy source, perhaps a primitive battery like the Baghdad battery found in Mesopotamia. The intention, they believe, was to protect this revolutionary knowledge, a form of sacred electricity used not for mundane purposes, but to brilliantly illuminate the inner sanctums of temples, creating awe-inspiring effects that would convince worshippers of the literal presence of the divine. This would explain the absence of soot from torches or oil lamps in many deep, enclosed temple chambers. For those who hold this view, the crypts at Dendera are the ultimate example of enigmatic design, a vault protecting not gold or jewels, but the very secret of artificial light, hidden away to maintain the priesthood's spiritual authority and technological advantage. Mainstream Egyptology and archaeology offer a vastly different, but no less fascinating interpretation. They see in these reliefs a rich tapestry of well-established Egyptian symbolism, beautifully illustrating a spiritual concept rather than a technical diagram. In this view, the bulb is actually a representation of a lotus flower from which a snake is emerging, a classic motif for the moment of creation. The snake is the god Harsomptus, a form of Horus, and the entire scene is a depiction of a foundational myth. The story tells of the cosmic serpent uncoiling within the primordial waters of a lotus flower at the dawn of time, bringing light and life into the universe. The cable is interpreted as a ceremonial rope, and the entire tableau is a symbolic map of the soul's journey and the cycle of rebirth. The jed pillar represents the stability of this cosmic order. The priests concealed these specific carvings in the crypts not to hide technology, but to protect the most esoteric and potent spiritual mysteries of the Osirian and solar cults, ensuring they were only revealed to initiates who had undergone rigorous training and preparation. This stark divide in interpretation highlights a profound cultural clash in how we view the past. The ancient astronaut or lost technology theory often stems from a reluctance to grant ancient peoples the sophistication for complex abstract thought and symbolism, subconsciously imposing our own technologically centric worldview onto their creations. It assumes that if something looks like a modern invention, it must have been one. Conversely, the symbolic interpretation asks us to step into a completely different mindset, one where mythology was not just stories, but a sophisticated language for describing cosmology, philosophy, and the nature of consciousness itself. The true mystery of Dendera may not be a lost light bulb, but a lost way of thinking, a holistic understanding where a single image could simultaneously represent a god, a cosmological event, and a psychological state. The enduring power of the Dendera controversy lies in its ability to force a conversation about the boundaries of ancient innovation. Even if we dismiss the literal light bulb theory, the crypts still guard a secret worth protecting: the advanced knowledge of the priests. This could have been a sophisticated understanding of optics, using precisely angled shafts and polished metal mirrors to channel beams of sunlight deep into the temple's heart, creating the illusion of a divine light source. Or it could point to early chemical experiments, recipes for creating phosphorescent paints or for mixing compounds that, when combined, produced a cool, ethereal glow for brief periods during key rituals. These techniques, blending early science with spiritual theater, would have been powerful tools, and their concealment in the Dendera crypts ensured that the magic remained potent and the temple's authority remained unchallenged. The enigma, therefore, challenges us to expand our definition of technology itself, wondering if the most advanced invention of the ancient world was not a device, but the mastery of the human mind and its perception of the incredible. Perched high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, the Temple of Apollo at Delphi was considered the very center of the ancient world, a place where heaven and earth met. For over 1,000 years, kings, generals, and common citizens alike made the arduous pilgrimage here, bearing lavish gifts and seeking one thing above all else: a prophecy from the Pythia, the oracle of Apollo, who would deliver the god's cryptic counsel while in a divine frenzy. The entire power and prestige of this sacred site rested on a powerful belief that the god himself was speaking through this woman. But what if the voice of the divine was channeled not just through faith, but through a hidden, geological fluke of the landscape, one that the temple's priests understood, amplified, and then expertly concealed. The most profound enigmatic design at Delphi wasn't a chamber or a tunnel, but the ingenious manipulation of the very air the oracle breathed. Ancient historical sources like the biographer Plutarch, who himself served as a priest at Delphi, provide the crucial clue. They describe a natural sweet-smelling vapor or pneuma, a breath, that would rise from a fissure in the rock deep beneath the temple's inner sanctum, the Aditon. The Pythia would descend into this enclosed space, seat herself on a tall, three-legged cauldron positioned directly over this chasm, and inhale these mysterious fumes. The gases were said to induce a trance-like state, a condition somewhere between delirium and ecstasy, in which she would utter her often fragmented and riddling prophecies. For centuries, this account was dismissed by scholars as mere myth or superstitious explanation. That is, until a team of modern geologists and archaeologists began to seriously investigate the site and made a stunning discovery. The area around Delphi is a tectonic crossroads, sitting directly on the intersection of two major fault lines. These shifting fractures in the Earth's crust could have allowed rising groundwater to interact with bituminous limestone, releasing light hydrocarbon gases, such as ethylene, which rises from the rock sweet-smelling and has been scientifically documented to possess mildly narcotic and trance-inducing properties. The ancient descriptions weren't fantasy. They were a precise, if unscientific, record of a real geological phenomenon. The genius of the temple's design lay not in creating this effect, but in controlling and concealing it. The priests of Apollo were the ultimate stage managers of the spiritual experience. They would have engineered hidden conduits and vents to carefully channel these gases from the deep fissure up to the specific seat of the Pythia, ensuring the concentration was just right enough to induce an altered state of consciousness, but not enough to be outright harmful. They may have even used curtains or adjustable vents to control the flow, fine-tuning the divine experience. The entire process was shrouded in immense secrecy and ritual. The Pythia underwent elaborate purification rites before her descent, and only a select few priests were ever allowed into the Aditon to hear her raw, often incoherent utterances and translate them into the elegant, poetic hexameters that were delivered to the anxious supplicant waiting outside. This system was a masterclass in information control and psychological manipulation. By burying the mechanics of the prophecy deep underground and wrapping it in impenetrable ritual, the priests safeguarded the source of their immense political and economic power. No rival cult could ever replicate the Oracle of Delphi because no one else had access to that specific, gaseous crack in the earth. This reveals a breathtaking synthesis of accidental geography and intentional human design. The temple's priests were in effect pioneering geologists and psychologists. They possessed and protected a deep, empirical knowledge of the intoxicating effects of specific subterranean gases, a science that wouldn't be rediscovered for millennia. Simultaneously, they demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of human suggestibility. The intense atmosphere of the sanctuary, the weeks of waiting for an audience, the awe-inspiring setting, and the profound belief of the seeker all primed them to interpret the Pythia's ambiguous verses as a direct message from the god, one that could launch fleets or halt wars. The mystery concealed at Delphi, therefore, is the blueprint for how a religious institution could harness a natural resource to manufacture unquestionable divine authority. It forces us to re-evaluate the line between divine inspiration and brilliant stagecraft, leaving us to ponder whether the true prophecy was from Apollo or from the ingenious minds of his priests who knew how to listen to the whispers of the earth itself. From the gaseous prophecies of Delphi, We now sail south along the life-giving waters of the Nile to a site where the river itself was both a source of sustenance and a constant threat. The Temple of Isis on the island of Philae stands as a monument to resilience, having been meticulously moved block by block to higher ground in a 20th century UNESCO operation to save it from the rising waters of the Aswan High Dam. But long before modern engineers intervened, the ancient priests and architects of Philae were already masters of hydrological defense, engineering a hidden world beneath the temple floors specifically designed to outsmart the Nile's annual floods. Their solution was a network of subterranean sanctuaries, not merely dry storage rooms, but spiritually charged, watertight vaults that protected the very heart of the goddess's cult from both environmental and human threats. The ingenuity of these chambers lies in their proactive design. The architects of Philae didn't just build walls, they built a system. They constructed false walls that concealed the entrances to narrow, descending staircases, leading to chambers with specially sealed joints and raised thresholds to create a barrier against intruding water. Some passages were even designed to be partially submerged during the inundation season, using the water itself as a natural lock to deter unauthorized access. This wasn't a panicked reaction to a disaster. It was a brilliant anticipation of a cyclical event, a permanent architectural solution to a predictable problem. The choice of location itself was strategic. By building on an island, the temple was already isolated, but these hidden, waterproof crypts provided a final, fail-safe sanctuary. They ensured that even if the main temple courtyards were flooded, the most sacred and powerful objects within would remain untouched and perfectly preserved in the cool, stable environment below. So what was deemed so vital that it required this level of protection? The cult of Isis was one of the most widespread and enduring in the ancient world, revered as the goddess of magic, healing, and most importantly, resurrection. Her rituals were believed to hold the power to restore life and health. Within these secure, subterranean vaults, the priests would have concealed the physical tools of this power, sacred texts written on precious papyrus, detailing spells and hymns for resurrecting the god Osiris, rituals that were symbolically reenacted to guarantee the annual rebirth of the land after the Nile's flood. They also safeguarded the ritual objects themselves. Elaborate, jewel-encrusted costumes worn during these ceremonies, sacred sistrums shaken to create a sound that could ward off evil spirits, and special vessels believed to hold the essence of life. But the most compelling mysteries likely involved the goddess's role as a divine physician. The walls of the upper temple are covered in inscriptions referring to Isis's vast knowledge of healing. It is highly probable that the sealed chambers below housed her most potent secrets, encoded medical papyri containing recipes for powerful herbal remedies, antiseptics, or anesthetics derived from local plants, and perhaps even early surgical instruments. This knowledge would have been considered too powerful, too sacred for general circulation. By concealing it, the priesthood protected their spiritual authority and ensured that the most life-giving secrets of their civilization were preserved against any catastrophe, be it a flood, an invasion, or simply the slow erosion of time. The hidden chambers of Philae stand as a profound testament to an ancient desire to protect not just treasure, but the very secrets of life itself from the relentless passage of both water and history. Nestled in the hill city of Kandy, Sri Lanka, the Temple of the Tooth presents a serene facade of white walls and golden roofs, a place of peaceful pilgrimage for millions of Buddhists. But this tranquility is a carefully maintained illusion, for beneath its polished floors lies a different world entirely, a fortress of faith engineered for a single, sacred purpose: to protect the Dalada, the relic believed to be the left canine tooth of the Buddha himself. This wasn't just about safeguarding a precious object, it was about preserving the very soul of a nation. In Sri Lankan belief, whoever holds the sacred tooth relic holds the legitimate right to rule the island. This made it the ultimate prize for any foreign invader seeking to demoralize and dominate the Sinhalese people, triggering an architectural arms race that resulted in one of history's most ingenious and multi-layered security systems, all hidden from public view. The genius of this subterranean defense lies in its psychological warfare. The architects knew that a straightforward vault would be a clear target, so they designed a masterpiece of misdirection. The approach to the inner sanctum is a deliberate maze of narrow, dimly lit passages that force any potential intruder into a state of disorientation and vulnerability. But the true brilliance is in the deployment of decoys. Multiple identical chambers branch off from the main path, each one a beautifully adorned, seemingly sacred space that appears to be the final destination. A looter racing against time and fearing discovery might burst into one of these rooms, find an ornate, empty casket, and believe their mission had failed or that the relic was elsewhere, never realizing the true chamber was still concealed behind a false wall or beneath a perfectly fitted stone slab just a few feet away. This architectural sleight of hand was the first and most effective line of defense, wasting the precious time and energy of any attacker. Beyond deception, the design incorporated very real physical barriers that were astonishingly advanced for their time. While the popular imagination might conjure images of rolling boulders and poisoned darts, the reality was likely even more clever. The passages could have been engineered with counter-weighted stone doors, massive blocks that could be released to seal corridors shut in an instant, trapping intruders or cutting off access to the heart of the temple. The floors might have been built with pivoting stones or pressure plates that could trigger alarms, not electronic bells, but perhaps the clattering of metal pots or the release of stones down a chute to alert the temple's guardian monks. The limited access points were another key feature, often consisting of a single, easily defensible staircase so narrow that only one person could ascend or descend at a time, creating a fatal bottleneck for any invading force. This combination of tricks and traps required an incredibly sophisticated understanding of mechanics, materials, and human behavior, all achieved centuries before the advent of modern engineering. This brings us to the profound mystery at the core of this design, the complete story of the relic's journey. The temple as it stands today is the final chapter in a saga of concealment that spans over 1,600 years. The tooth was allegedly smuggled into Sri Lanka in the 4th century CE, hidden within the hair of a princess from India. From that moment, it was never truly safe. As successive colonial powers, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British, launched invasions and sought to capture and destroy the relic, the custodians of the tooth became masters of evasion. They built temporary shrines in remote jungle caves, transported the relic in disguised containers, and ultimately engineered this permanent, fortified home in Kandy. The greatest enigma buried within these vaults may not be a single object, but the cumulative history of its protection, the unrecorded stories of the countless guardians who knew its location, and the secret passages they used during times of extreme peril. It's a history written not on paper, but in stone and strategy. Furthermore, the focus on the primary relic makes one wonder what else might share its sanctuary. A symbol of such immense spiritual and political power would naturally attract other precious offerings. The sealed decoy chambers and secondary vaults could very well contain a hidden treasury of unimaginable value and historical significance. We might find gold and jeweled votive offerings from ancient kings, perfectly preserved palm leaf manuscripts containing lost Buddhist sutras or historical chronicles, or even relics from other revered figures, all placed under the protection of the Tooth Relic's formidable security system. The temple, therefore, functions as a Russian doll of secrets, with its most famous enigma protecting a cascade of others, each layer representing a different era of devotion and a different strategy for survival against the threat of cultural annihilation. Beneath the towering steps of the Temple of Quetzalcoatl at Chichen Itza, a structure renowned for its fearsome serpent heads and precise geometric perfection, lies a far more primal and mysterious world. While tourists above marvel at the mathematical genius of the Maya, the true spiritual engine of this place thrums deep within the earth, centered around one of the most sacred and terrifying natural formations in Mesoamerica, the Great Cenote. This gaping sinkhole, with its dark, groundwater-filled depths, was not just a source of fresh water for the city. It was considered a direct portal to the underworld, a place known as Xibalba, where the gods of death and rain resided. The entire temple complex was deliberately oriented around this natural well, and its most profound rituals were designed not for the sunlit plazas, but for the concealed tunnels and submerged chambers that connected the world of the living to this ominous gateway. The design of these underground extensions reveals a sophisticated understanding of both psychology and hydrology. The Maya engineers didn't just build near the cenote, they integrated it, constructing a network of hidden stone-lined passages and ritual chambers that allowed priests to move unseen from the temple to the water's edge. This concealment served two critical purposes. Firstly, it protected the sanctity of the ceremonies. The act of communicating with the gods of the underworld was a dangerous, high-stakes endeavor that required absolute focus and secrecy, free from the distractions and potential impurities of the uninitiated public. Secondly, and more grimly, it hid the more visceral and unsettling aspects of the worship from general view. Historical accounts from Spanish colonists and archaeological evidence, including the discovery of human remains with marks of ritual sacrifice, point to the cenote being a site of offerings to appease the rain god, Chak. The hidden tunnels allowed priests to conduct these solemn and somber rites away from the main ceremonial center, managing the profound spiritual and emotional impact on the broader community. What makes this system so enigmatic is the potential scientific knowledge it conceals. The movement of water in the Yucatan Peninsula's vast underground river systems is incredibly complex, governed by a delicate balance of freshwater and saltwater, and influenced by seasonal rain. The Maya priests demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to predict the cenote's water levels and quality. This has led some researchers to theorize that their hidden tunnels might have served a dual function as a sophisticated hydrological monitoring system. Specific chambers could have been designed to act as resonance chambers, amplifying the sound of underground water movement, allowing priests to listen to the aquifer. Or perhaps they contained marked stones or channels to precisely measure water level changes, giving them a practical method for predicting droughts or rains, which in turn dictated the timing of their most important ceremonies and agricultural cycles. This practical data would have been interpreted through a spiritual lens, their successful predictions seen as proof that their sacrifices had been accepted by the gods, thereby concealing a form of early empirical science within the framework of ritual. Beyond the secrets of water, the alignment of these subterranean features with the cosmos adds another layer of mystery. The Temple of Quetzalcoatl itself is famously aligned with the spring and autumn equinoxes, when the sunlight creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the pyramid steps. It is highly plausible that the hidden tunnels and the cenote's opening were also part of this greater astronomical design. Certain tunnels might have been oriented to capture the light of specific stars or planets on key dates, illuminating a path to the water for a ritual procession or shining a beam of light onto the cenote's surface at a precise moment. This would have transformed the natural sinkhole into a colossal astronomical instrument, its function known only to a select few who understood how to read the heavens and the earth in tandem. The greatest offering to the gods, then, may not have been the jewels or even the lives cast into the water, but the immense intellectual effort required to build this hidden clockwork of stone and water, a secret kept for centuries beneath the feet of the worshippers above. Now we arrive at a site that doesn't just challenge our understanding of ancient history, it seems to defy the very laws of physics. In the fertile Bekaa Valley of Lebanon stand the ruins of the Roman Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek, a truly colossal complex of grand columns and sprawling courtyards. But to uncover its deepest secret, you must look past the impressive Roman workmanship and direct your gaze downward to the mind-boggling foundation upon which it all rests. Here, in a massive subterranean platform known as the Grand Terrace, lies an architectural puzzle that has baffled engineers and archaeologists for centuries. We are confronted with three truly gigantic stone blocks, each weighing an almost incomprehensible 800 tons, perfectly cut and fitted together with a precision that seems impossible for any known ancient technology. This is the famed trilithon, and its existence forces us to ask a question that echoes through the ages. How was this done, and more importantly, why go to such impossible lengths to create a foundation that would be almost entirely buried and hidden from view? The scale of these stones is so immense that it completely dwarfs the later Roman construction. To put it in perspective, a single one of these 800-ton blocks is equal to the weight of two fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets. The Romans themselves, master builders that they were, never moved stones even half this size for any of their own projects across their entire empire. This glaring discrepancy is the core of the Baalbek enigma. It strongly suggests that the Romans did not build this foundation. They found it already there, a pre-existing cyclopean platform constructed by a much older, unknown civilization, and they simply built their own temple on top of it, perhaps in a deliberate attempt to co-opt the sacred power and mystery of the site. The design of this hidden foundation, then, becomes the ultimate act of concealment. The original builders didn't just bury a chamber, they buried an entire technological paradigm, a method of construction so advanced that its secrets were lost long before the Romans ever arrived. Theories about how this was achieved range from the conventionally inventive to the wildly speculative. Mainstream archaeologists suggest the use of an immense workforce, thousands of laborers using wooden rollers, ropes, and levers, inching the stones along a prepared causeway from a quarry located nearly a mile away. Yet even the most detailed of these explanations struggle to account for the precision of the placement. How do you lower an 800-ton block into a specific position with an accuracy of millimeters without it shattering or crushing the workers below? This has led to more alternative ideas, including the use of counterweighted cranes and lifting frameworks of a sophistication we don't attribute to the ancient world. Some researchers, noting the sheer weight and the apparent lack of tool marks on the stone's bases, have even proposed a form of acoustic or vibrational levitation, a lost science where sound frequencies were used to make the massive stones temporarily weightless, allowing them to be moved and positioned with relative ease. While this may sound like science fiction, it highlights the sheer desperation to find an answer that fits the monumental evidence on the ground. The purpose of this Herculean effort likely went far beyond mere structural support. In the ancient world, the effort expended on a building was directly proportional to its perceived importance. The energy required to move the trilithon stones was so astronomically high that it signals this was the most sacred ground imaginable. The foundation itself was the primary temple, a sacred representation of a stable and unshakable world, built to last for eternity. By burying these impossibly large stones, the builders were making a profound spiritual statement. They were literally anchoring their most sacred space to the bedrock of the earth, creating a permanent and indestructible connection to the divine. Furthermore, the hidden compartments and channels within the terrace, some of which are still being mapped, may have served a ritual purpose. They could have been used to channel water or other offerings into the earth, or perhaps even to amplify sound during ceremonies, turning the entire platform into a resonant chamber for communication with the gods. The greatest mystery of Baalbek, therefore, may not be a hidden artifact or a lost scroll. The mystery is the foundation itself. It is a statement in stone, a permanent challenge left by its architects. It conceals not an object but a capability. It asks us to reconsider the entire timeline of human achievement and to humbly accept that a civilization lost to our historical records might have possessed an engineering prowess that we, even with all our modern machinery, would find difficult to replicate. The Temple of Jupiter above is a magnificent ruin, but the true wonder, the true enigma, lies silently beneath it, waiting not to be found but to be understood. Deep within the sun-baked walls of the Temple of Horus at Edfu, a structure celebrated for its near-perfect preservation, lies a hidden dimension that few visitors ever see. While the public halls tell the story of the gods' triumphant battle against the Chaos Serpent set, the true heart of the temple's power is sealed away in a series of subterranean crypts, accessible only through narrow, concealed shafts. These are not tombs for the dead, but libraries for the living, secure repositories where the most potent secrets of Egyptian sacred science were encoded not on fragile papyrus, but directly onto the stone walls themselves. Here, amidst elaborate hieroglyphic texts and intricate diagrams, the priests of Horus hid what can only be described as the divine blueprint for creation itself, a master plan for building bridges between the earthly and the celestial. The walls of these crypts are covered in what Egyptologists call the building texts, a detailed and surprisingly technical narrative that describes the very first temple, which was believed to have been designed by the gods themselves at the dawn of time. This is far more than a simple myth. It is a precise, symbolic instruction manual. The texts describe a mythical battle, but this conflict is also a metaphor for the act of creation, where establishing order from chaos meant aligning a sacred space with the fundamental laws of the cosmos. Interwoven with this story are shockingly practical details, specific formulas for creating the sacred mortar used to bind stones, rituals for the stretching of the cord ceremony to lay out the temple's foundation with perfect cardinal alignment, and lists of the exact proportions every part of the structure must follow. This reveals a world where spirituality and engineering were not separate disciplines, but two sides of the same sacred coin. To build a temple was to perform a continuous act of worship, and the methods for doing it correctly were considered so powerful that they had to be protected from misuse or misunderstanding. The most compelling mysteries within these sealed chambers revolve around the application of this knowledge. The texts and diagrams suggest the ancient Egyptians possessed a sophisticated understanding of what we might now call sacred geometry and archaeoacoustics. Specific chamber dimensions and wall angles appear to be calculated to resonate with certain sound frequencies. Scholars theorize that chanting or playing specific instruments within these spaces could generate harmonic frequencies designed to alter consciousness, perhaps to aid in meditation or to create an atmosphere conducive to what the priests would have called communion with the gods. Furthermore, the alignment of these crypts, and by extension the entire temple, was not merely symbolic. The precision with which the main axis of Edfu is oriented suggests it was used as a massive astronomical observatory. Small apertures or specially designed slots in the ceiling could have allowed beams of sunlight or starlight to penetrate the inner sanctum on specific days of the year, like the solstices or the heliacal rising of Sirius, illuminating a particular statue or altar and creating a breathtaking display of divine timing that reinforced the pharaoh's role as the intermediary between the people. The cosmos. This points to a potentially revolutionary idea that the Temple of Edfu was not an isolated masterpiece, but one node in a vast, interconnected network. The building texts imply a standardized set of principles that would have been applied to temples throughout Egypt. If true, this means that structures from Abu Simbel in the south to the temples of the Delta in the north were all built according to the same cosmic blueprint, effectively turning the entire nation into a giant, harmonized instrument for harnessing what they perceived as cosmic energy. The secrets concealed at Edfu, therefore, might be the key to understanding this unified ancient science. Did they believe that properly aligned and constructed temples could stabilize the very fabric of reality, ensuring the Nile would flood, the sun would rise, and the principle of order and truth would prevail over chaos? The encrypted knowledge in these crypts suggests the answer is yes, presenting a vision of ancient Egypt not just as a kingdom of pyramid builders, but as a civilization of philosopher-scientists who encoded their deepest understanding of the universe into the very stones they so carefully buried from view. Perched dramatically on the windswept cliffs of Cape Saunian, the Temple of Poseidon has captivated travelers for centuries with its breathtaking views of the Aegean Sea and its iconic, sun-bleached columns standing as a defiant monument to the god of the deep. But while visitors today gaze out at the horizon, few realize that the true power of this sacred site may not be in what rises toward the sky, but in what lies hidden beneath their feet. Carved into the very rock that anchors the temple are a series of natural caves and cunningly constructed chambers, a subterranean world that served as the clandestine heart of spiritual life here. This was not a space for public prayer or offering. It was a carefully concealed sanctuary for initiation into the profound and secretive mystery cults dedicated to Poseidon, designed to shield their powerful rituals from the uninitiated and to harness the raw, untamed energy of the coastal landscape itself. The genius of this design lies in its seamless integration with the environment. The architects didn't fight the natural geology. They embraced it, using existing sea caves and fissures in the limestone cliff face as the foundation for their hidden complex. The entrance to these chambers was likely disguised, perhaps hidden behind a movable slab of rock or accessible only at low tide through a passage that would be swallowed by the sea hours later. This natural camouflage provided the ultimate security system. To an outsider, it was just another feature of the rugged coastline, but to those who knew the secret, it was a gateway to another realm. The very journey to reach this space was part of the ritual, a physical descent from the sunlit world of order and reason into a shadowy, echoing underworld that mirrored the mysterious depths of Poseidon's domain. The constant, muffled roar of the waves crashing against the cliffs below would have vibrated through the stone, a pervasive, thunderous soundtrack that heightened the sense of entering the god's powerful presence. Within these concealed chambers, the initiates would undergo experiences designed to fundamentally alter their consciousness and their understanding of the world. The rituals of these mystery cults were kept meticulously secret, with vows of silence enforced on pain of death, but historians can piece together likely activities from related traditions. The ceremonies probably involved sacred dramas reenacting the myths of Poseidon, stories of his creation of the first horse, his fierce battles for control of the cities of Greece, and his role as the Earth Shaker who could unleash tsunamis and earthquakes. Participation in these dramas wasn't passive, it was an immersive, emotional ordeal. The combination of rhythmic chanting, the hypnotic sound of the sea, the flickering of torchlight on wet stone walls, and possibly the use of psychoactive substances found in local plants would have induced powerful trance states. In these altered states of consciousness, initiates felt they were not just hearing about the god, but truly communing with him, receiving personal visions and a profound sense of rebirth and enlightenment that would bind them to the cult and to each other for life. The mysteries protected here almost certainly extended beyond the purely spiritual. Poseidon was not only a god of the sea's terrors, but also its blessings, the patron of sailors, fishermen, and merchants whose lives depended on mastering the waves. The senior priests, who were likely seasoned mariners themselves, may have used this secluded space to safeguard and pass down a different kind of secret, advanced, hard-won navigational knowledge. This could have included the oral mapping of hidden currents, the seasonal patterns of the winds, the identification of specific stars and constellations used for nighttime sailing, and techniques for predicting approaching storms based on subtle changes in wave patterns and cloud formations. In an age before published maps or lighthouses, this information was invaluable, a form of intellectual currency that gave maritime communities a critical advantage. By wrapping this practical, life-saving knowledge in the cloak of sacred ritual, the priests ensured its preservation and controlled its dissemination, granting it only to those deemed worthy through initiation. This brilliant strategy turned the cave beneath the temple into a living library of oceanic wisdom, where the line between a prayer for safe passage and a lesson in reading the sea would have been beautifully and intentionally blurred. This profound connection to the natural world is what makes Saunion's hidden design so compelling. The temple doesn't just use the environment as a hiding place, it uses it as an active participant in the mystery. The sea is both the subject of worship and the tool for achieving it. The secret is hidden in plain sight, in the very sound of the waves and the shape of the cliffs, waiting for those with the knowledge to listen and understand. It challenges our modern separation of the sacred from the practical, reminding us that for the ancient Greeks, the journey to enlightenment was not an escape from the world, but a deeper dive into its most powerful and mysterious forces. While the grand columns and imposing statues of Luxor Temple are designed to project an image of eternal and unchanging power to the world above, a hidden, dynamic world thrived just beneath the surface. This was not a static monument, but a living, breathing organism of statecraft and faith, and its subterranean networks were the vital arteries that kept that heart beating. The famous avenue of sphinxes that connects Luxor to the great temple of Karnak is merely the public face of a far more intricate system. Running parallel to this majestic processional way, and often directly beneath it, lies a concealed web of tunnels and secure storage chambers. These were not built for occasional use. They were the backstage infrastructure for the most important political and religious theater in all of Egypt, the annual Apet festival. During this momentous event, the statues of the gods Amun, Mut, and Khonsu would be ceremonially transported from Karnak to Luxor in a lavish public procession. The entire city would line the avenue, witnessing the divine journey, but what the public couldn't see was the intricate logistical operation happening underground. The hidden tunnels provided a secure, climate-controlled, and private route for priests to move the countless precious ritual objects, ceremonial garments, and offerings needed for the days-long festival. Imagine teams of high-status priests moving through these cool, dimly lit passageways, carrying solid gold offering vessels, alabaster jars filled with rare perfumes, and the elaborate regalia that would be used to redress the god statues upon their arrival. This subterranean system ensured that the public spectacle remained flawless, and that the most potent symbols of divine power were never exposed to risk, theft, or the potentially impure gaze of the common populace. The sanctity of the ceremony, and by extension the authority of the pharaoh who presided over it, was protected by this brilliant architecture of secrecy. The genius of Luxor's hidden design extends beyond mere logistics into the realm of psychological control. The temple itself was understood as a symbolic representation of the universe, with its public halls representing the ordered, known world and its hidden, subterranean chambers representing the mysterious, chthonic realm of creation and raw power. Access to these lower levels was itself a ritual, a descent into the symbolic underworld that was granted only to the highest-ranking priests and, of course, the pharaoh. The very act of passing through a narrow, concealed doorway marked by potent symbols like the winged sun disk or the eyes of Horus was a powerful reaffirmation of their elite status and divine mandate. This created a powerful hierarchy of knowledge and experience. The masses experienced the festival's public joy and pageantry. The nobility witnessed more exclusive rituals in the inner courtyards, but only a select few ever descended into the foundational mystery that made it all possible. This physical and symbolic barrier was a masterful tool for reinforcing the social order and cementing the pharaoh's role as the sole intermediary between the people and the terrifying, generative forces of the unseen world. The enduring mysteries concealed within these spaces are not just about what was hidden, but what was exchanged there. Luxor Temple stands at a crucial crossroads of the ancient world, a nexus for trade and diplomacy with the rich kingdoms of Nubia to the south and the powerful empires of the Near East. The secure, private nature of its underground chambers made them the perfect setting for interactions that needed to occur away from the public eye. It is highly plausible that these rooms hosted meetings between Egyptian priests and their foreign counterparts. Within these walls, they might have exchanged not just gifts, but ideas, theological concepts, astronomical observations, or artistic techniques. Archaeologists might one day find evidence of this cultural fusion in forgotten caches. A ritual vessel crafted in the distinct style of the Kingdom of Kush, but bearing the cartouche of an Egyptian pharaoh, or a fragment of cuneiform tablet discussing a treaty, found alongside traditional Egyptian liturgical texts. Such a discovery would dramatically reshape our understanding of these relationships, revealing them to be a sophisticated dialogue rather than a simple dynamic of conqueror and conquered. Furthermore, the deepest crypts likely hold the answer to one of Egyptology's most tantalizing questions: the complete details of the daily ritual. While we have general texts outlining the ceremonies for awakening, feeding, and clothing a god statue, the precise incantations, the exact melodies of hymns, and the specific choreography of the priests remain lost. These performances were likely considered so potent that they were never written down in a public record, instead passed orally from one generation of high priests to the next within the sacred secrecy of these underground chambers. The walls of these spaces may yet contain encrypted notations or unique symbols that served as a mnemonic guide for these rituals, a code waiting for the right key to unlock the sounds and movements that brought the temple to life. The hidden network of Luxor ultimately reveals that the greatest power in ancient Egypt was not just in the gold and the monuments, but in the controlled flow of information and the impeccable execution of ceremony, all meticulously safeguarded in the silence below. Deep within the humid jungles of Chiapas, Mexico, the Maya city of Palenque stands as a breathtaking monument to artistic and intellectual achievement. Its most famous structure, the Temple of the Inscriptions, rises in 9 steep steps, a pyramid designed not just to reach for the heavens, but to house one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. For centuries, the temple was a beautiful mystery, its namesake inscriptions hinting at a grand secret but offering no way in. It wasn't until 1952 that the real wonder was revealed. Mexican archaeologist Alberto Roslulia, after meticulously studying the stone floor of the temple's inner sanctuary, noticed a series of unusual holes in a large flagstone. When lifted, this stone revealed the mouth of a hidden stairway, a passage that had been deliberately sealed with rubble and clay for over 1,000 years. The excavation that followed was a painstaking process, taking 4 full years to clear the descending vault. But the reward at the bottom was beyond anything anyone could have imagined. The pristine, lavish tomb of the great Maya ruler Kainish Janab Pakal, who had been laid to rest in the year 683. This was more than a burial chamber. It was a time capsule of Maya belief, engineered to protect the king's cosmic journey and to conceal a profound understanding of the universe behind a veil of stunning symbolism. The centerpiece of this subterranean sanctuary is Pakal's massive, intricately carved stone sarcophagus lid, a masterpiece that has become a Rorschach test for the modern world. To the trained eye of an epigrapher and Maya scholar, the scene is a rich and complex depiction of classic Maya cosmology. The king is shown at the moment of his death, reclining backward as he falls into the jaws of the underworld, represented by a monstrous face. Above him grows the world tree, the sacred ceiba that connects the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. This tree is also depicted as a cross, its branches bearing the celestial serpent bar and the bird of heaven, symbolizing Pakal's imminent rebirth and his ascension to join the gods. The entire tableau is framed by a band representing the sky, marked with astronomical signs and symbols of Venus, the sun, and the moon. This was the intended message, a detailed, symbolic roadmap for the king's soul, guiding him through the perils of the afterlife and ensuring his transformation into a divine ancestor. The hidden stairway itself was a physical recreation of this journey, a dark, symbolic portal leading the king's spirit down into the underworld so that it could then rise reborn to the stars. However, to a gaze conditioned by 20th century science fiction and a growing fascination with the possibility of ancient astronauts, the same carving told a completely different story. In this interpretation, Pakal is not reclining. He is leaning forward in a seated position inside a complex mechanical contraption. His hands appear to be manipulating controls, his foot is on a pedal, and he is even wearing a type of breathing apparatus over his nose. The world tree transforms into the exhaust plume of a rocket ship, and the celestial serpent becomes a convoluted array of wires, tubes, and instrumentation. This view, popularized by authors like Erich von Däniken, posits that the carving is literal evidence of advanced technology, suggesting that Pakal was an ancient astronaut being launched into space, or that the Maya were depicting contact with extraterrestrial beings who possessed vehicles for cosmic travel. This theory, while dismissed outright by mainstream archaeologists, captured the global imagination and ignited a passionate debate that continues to this day, demonstrating how ancient art can become a canvas for our own modern hopes, fears, and speculations about humanity's place in the cosmos. Beyond the controversial lid, the tomb itself is a marvel of intentional concealment and preservation. The hidden stairway was just the first layer of security. The burial chamber was constructed as a self-contained vault deep within the pyramid's core, its massive walls and huge triangular corbelled arch designed to withstand the immense weight of the stone above it for eternity. Within this space, Pakal's body was adorned with a magnificent jade mosaic death mask, a masterpiece of craftsmanship intended to forever preserve his likeness. He was surrounded by jade jewelry and precious offerings, but the most significant safeguarded treasures were not the material objects, but the intellectual ones. The walls of the stairway are covered with long hieroglyphic inscriptions that detail Pakal's lineage and his right to rule, while also containing sophisticated astronomical records. The Maya were master timekeepers, and it is highly probable that the construction of the temple and the timing of the king's burial were precisely aligned with celestial events, perhaps the movement of Venus or a solar eclipse, events they could predict with remarkable accuracy. This knowledge of the heavens was a source of immense power for the Maya priesthood, and by burying it within the king's tomb, they were protecting it, literally setting it in stone to ensure it would guide not only Pakal but also future generations who might one day decipher its meaning. The true enigma of Palenque, therefore, is not about spaceships but about the incredible sophistication of the Maya mind. The sarcophagus lid is not a technical diagram, it is a philosophical one. It represents a worldview where death was not an end, but a transformative journey through a layered spiritual cosmos. The Maya understanding of time, astronomy, and mathematics was so advanced that it seems to border on the supernatural to a modern observer, making the ancient astronaut theory a tempting but ultimately simplistic explanation. The real mystery is how a civilization without our technology achieved such profound intellectual heights. The Temple of the Inscriptions challenges us to move beyond the literal and embrace the symbolic, to appreciate that the most advanced technology the Maya possessed was their brilliant capacity for abstract thought, their ability to encode their deepest understanding of life, death, and the universe into art and architecture. They concealed this knowledge not from us, but for us, leaving behind a puzzle that continues to inspire awe and remind us that the greatest journeys are not always through space, but through the boundless landscape of human imagination. Beneath the sprawling complex of Karnak, away from the towering obelisks and the grand procession of sphinxes, lies a different kind of sacred space, one defined not by stone but by water. The sacred lake is a vast, rectangular basin mirroring the sky and seemingly placid on its surface, yet its true significance flows from what lies beneath. This was not merely a reservoir for practical use, it was a living, symbolic entity, the primordial waters of Nun from which the Egyptians believed all creation emerged. The lake itself was a temple, and its most profound secrets were housed in concealed chambers built into its very banks, designed to harness the water's natural power for both spiritual and physical purification, protecting the delicate instruments of balance upon which the entire universe was thought to depend. Access to these subterranean spaces was a privilege granted only to the highest-ranking priests. Imagine descending a narrow, slick stone staircase that seems to disappear directly into the dark water, only to find a cleverly constructed, watertight antechamber just below the waterline. The air would be cool and heavy with moisture, the silence broken only by the gentle lapping of the lake overhead. These chambers were engineered with brilliant foresight, using the lake's constant, cool temperature and stable humidity as a natural preservation system. The very environment that would quickly decay a papyrus scroll left in the open desert air became, in this submerged vault, the perfect climate-controlled archive. Here, the priests safeguarded the most sacred tools of their trade, ritual barges used in ceremonies that reenacted the sun god's journey across the sky, crafted from precious woods that would warp and crack if left exposed, delicate faience vessels inlaid with lapis lazuli, holding the sacred oils and unguents used for anointing statues of the gods, and perhaps most importantly, the texts. These wouldn't be historical records, but functional documents, the precise liturgical scripts for ceremonies of purification, the hymns to be chanted to calm the Nile's flood or to summon the life-giving rains, and the medical papyri detailing treatments that relied on water's properties. This points to a mystery that blends the spiritual with the scientific. the Egyptians had an advanced understanding of water's properties long before modern chemistry gave us the reasons. They observed its role in life, cleanliness, and disease, and they ritualized this knowledge. The concealed chambers by the sacred lake may have served as a kind of ancient laboratory and medical library. The so-called healing hymns mentioned in inscriptions weren't just prayers. They were likely precise, rhythmic incantations used in conjunction with hydrotherapy and the administration of water-based remedies. The priests, who were also the physicians of their time, might have stored their most potent preparations here: infusions of healing herbs steeped in the sacred water, mineral compounds dissolved to create antiseptic washes, and detailed maps of the temple's water systems that ensured a pure, uncontaminated flow for both drinking and ritual use. The line between a spiritual purification ceremony and a medical sterilization procedure was undoubtedly thin, and the secrets to both were protected in these humid chambers, representing a holistic view of health where cleansing the body and cleansing the soul were part of the same divine process. The greatest enigma of this design, however, may be its potential connection to the lake's construction itself. The sacred lake is not fed by the Nile directly. It is a spring-fed tank, its water source originating from deep underground aquifers. This was a deliberate choice, ensuring ritual purity from a source untouched by the seasonal silt and potential contaminants of the great river. Some researchers speculate that the subterranean network extends far beyond the immediate lake shore, suggesting that these priestly chambers could be the access points to a much wider system of underground tunnels and natural water channels that linked Karnak to other sacred sites, perhaps even to the Nile itself. This hidden hydraulic system might have been used for more than just storage. It could have been a means of secret communication between temple complexes or a way to control water levels during key rituals, creating a dramatic visual effect for initiates. The harmonious blend of this natural water source with the man-made architecture reveals a civilization that didn't seek to dominate nature, but to partner with it, to weave its elemental power directly into the fabric of their faith. The silent, waterlocked chambers of Karnak's sacred lake stand as a testament to this deep, symbiotic understanding, guarding the quiet truth that sometimes the most powerful secrets are not buried in dry sand, but kept in the gentle, eternal embrace of water. Looking across this vast tapestry of hidden chambers and buried labyrinths, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia, a profound and unifying truth comes into focus. These 25 enigmatic designs are not random acts of secrecy. They are chapters in a single, global story of human aspiration. While separated by continents and millennia, the architects of these spaces were all driven by a shared, fundamental impulse to protect the very core of their identity and understanding from the relentless forces of decay, invasion, and forgetting. Whether it was the sacred relic of the Buddha's tooth in Sri Lanka, the astronomical charts of the Maya in Mexico, or the ritual blueprints of the Egyptians, each society identified what was most essential to its survival, not just physical survival, but cultural, spiritual, and intellectual continuity, and they went to incredible lengths to ensure its preservation. This reveals a deep-seated human understanding that the most valuable treasures are not always gold and jewels, but the ideas, beliefs, and knowledge that define a civilization and fuel its progress. What is truly staggering is the sophisticated toolkit of knowledge these builders employed. They were not merely diggers of holes, they were masters of multiple disciplines, weaving them together into a seamless whole. Their understanding of psychology is evident in the bewildering labyrinths of Egypt, designed to exploit an intruder's fear and disorientation, and in the awe-inspiring acoustic tricks of China's Temple of Heaven, which manipulated perception to create divine encounters. Their engineering genius shines through in the hydraulic cities of Cappadocia, with their precise ventilation shafts that sustained life deep underground, and in the impossibly massive stone foundations of Baalbek, which defy simple explanation even today. And their cosmological awareness is etched into the very alignment of these spaces, from the star shafts of Karnak to the solstice markers of Chichen Itza, showing a desire to anchor their most sacred truths to the immutable cycles of the cosmos itself. This synthesis of mind, matter, and heaven suggests that for ancient cultures, there was no separation between science, spirituality, and security. They were all part of a unified effort to comprehend and safeguard their place in the universe. This leads us to the most crucial distinction about their intent. The purpose of this concealment was never merely to hide something away in the dark forever. It was an act of active preservation, a way of creating a time capsule for the future. The builders were not just trying to keep secrets from their enemies, they were trying to save them for their descendants or for those they deemed worthy and enlightened enough to understand them. The encrypted hieroglyphs in the crypts of Edfu, the symbolic carvings in the sealed basements of Borobudur, and the hidden libraries speculated to be beneath the Vatican were all meant to be found and decoded by a future generation that might need that wisdom to rebuild or to remember. This changes the narrative from one of simple paranoia to one of profound hope and responsibility. They buried their knowledge not because they feared it, but because they revered it so deeply that they could not bear the thought of it being lost to the superficial ravages of their own time. They were playing the ultimate long game, investing in a future they would never see. Consequently, these enduring mysteries serve as a powerful challenge to our modern, often condescending, view of the past. They force us to abandon the simplistic notion of ancient peoples as primitive or superstitious, and to confront the possibility that they possessed insights and capabilities that we are only beginning to grasp. The sheer ambition of these projects, cutting tunnels through solid bedrock with primitive tools, calculating precise astronomical alignments without modern instruments, and moving stones that we would struggle with today, demands a humility from us. It suggests that history is not a straightforward line of progress, but a complex web where knowledge can be gained, lost, and rediscovered. These subterranean wonders are not anomalies. They are evidence of peaks of achievement that we are still working to measure. Ultimately, this global tapestry invites us to see these 25 designs not as isolated curiosities, but as a collective human project. It is a project that transcends individual cultures and eras, revealing a universal drive to make a mark on the world that is deeper and more permanent than the surface-level monuments of power. It is a story of ingenuity born from necessity, of spirituality expressed through stone, and of a desperate, beautiful hope that what matters most can be saved from the tide of time. These hidden spaces are a testament to the fact that humanity's greatest aspiration has always been to reach for the eternal, and sometimes the surest way to do that was to build not up toward the sky, but down into the welcoming, protective embrace of the earth itself. From the labyrinthine depths beneath Egypt's Hawara pyramid to the mercury-lit tunnels snaking under Mexico's Temple of the Feathered Serpent, our journey has revealed a truth that echoes across every continent and culture. Humanity has always felt a profound need to bury its most precious truths. This isn't merely a story of hidden chambers and sealed vaults. It is the story of us. It is a testament to our enduring desire to protect what we value most, be it spiritual belief, groundbreaking knowledge, or cultural identity, from the inevitable forces of erosion, whether from invading armies, the slow decay of time, or simply the shifting sands of conventional understanding. These 25 enigmatic designs show us that ancient architects were far more than master builders. They were the ultimate guardians, the keepers of mysteries so potent they had to be encased in stone and earth, ensuring they would outlast empires and resonate through millennia. What becomes overwhelmingly clear is that this impulse transcends geography and era. The priest in Teotihuacan channeling cosmic energy with pools of liquid mercury, the Khmer engineer at Angkor Wat turning a temple into a hydraulic model of the universe, and the Christian builder weaving ancient pagan symbols into the foundations of a modern cathedral, all were participating in the same universal act. They were building for the future. They understood that the most profound legacies are not the towering monuments visible to all, but the secrets carefully placed in the dark, waiting for a moment when the world is ready to receive them. This was not an act of fear, but one of incredible hope and responsibility. It was a declaration that their knowledge, their art, and their connection to the divine were too vital to be left to the fragile hands of their own time. They were planting seeds in the deepest soil, trusting that one day they would grow. This exploration does more than just satisfy our curiosity about the past. It holds up a mirror to our own modern world. In an age of digital clouds and instant information, where data is everywhere but wisdom can feel scarce, these physical vaults remind us of the weight and power of true secrets. They challenge our assumptions about progress, forcing us to humbly reconsider the intellectual and spiritual heights achieved by civilizations we often label as primitive. The precision of their astronomy, the sophistication of their psychology, and the sheer scale of their engineering feats stand as a permanent challenge to our own technological arrogance, suggesting that some peaks of human achievement may have been reached long ago, only to be forgotten and buried, waiting for us to rediscover them. As we reach the end of this particular journey, the most exciting thought is that this is merely the beginning. For every hidden chamber we have explored, there are undoubtedly dozens, perhaps hundreds, still waiting in the darkness. The flooded lower levels of Derinkuyu, the sealed basements of Borobudur, the uncharted tunnels beneath the Temple Mount, each represents a promise of a revelation yet to come. What other blueprints for sacred geometry, what other lost texts of philosophy or early scientific breakthroughs, what other stories of human resilience and genius are still entombed just beyond our reach? The search for these answers is what drives archaeologists, historians, and enthusiasts to keep digging, keep scanning, and keep wondering. I've been endlessly fascinated by the sheer diversity of reasons to conceal something, and I'd love to know which of these 25 designs captured your imagination the most. Was it the psychological maze of the Egyptian labyrinth, the sonic mastery of the Temple of Heaven, or the sheer defensive genius of the Temple of the Tooth? Share your favorite in the comments below. I read every single one. If you've enjoyed this descent into history's hidden layers, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the world's greatest enigmas. Remember, history is not just a story written in books. It is a puzzle buried in the earth, and sometimes the greatest truths aren't lost at all. They are simply hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with the patience and the wonder to look beneath the surface.